Good evening, everybody. We'll get started. If you got your Bibles, turn to Proverbs chapter 10. So we've all heard the analogy that I've bitten off more than I can chew. When I signed up for this week, I was excited because it's a chapter that's got a lot of information, a lot of wisdom, a lot of power in it. And then I sat down to start making this lesson, and then I was like, oh man, there's a lot of information here. There's a lot of wisdom. There's a lot of power here. So I say all that to say that we might get through all of it, and we might not. And I might have cut it so short that we run early, so we'll see. I want to start out, I want to read an opening statement, give a couple statistics, and then kind of give a story before we jump into the chapter. I found this statement. It says, Proverbs 10 is not a set of rules to follow so that life goes well. It is a portrait of what God-fearing life actually looks like when it's lived out in details. In what you say at work, how you spend Tuesday afternoon, whether you tell the truth when a lie would be easier, whether your words build people up or quietly tear them down. The path of wisdom isn't dramatic. It's just faithful, day after day, choice after choice. And Solomon says, that's enough. That's what endures. There's a lot to unpack here, but the three threads that continue to pop up throughout this whole chapter is work, words, and wisdom. A statistic I wanted to share with you was about work. It says that the average American spends 2.5 hours a day wasting time at their job. Not being productive for their boss, just going through their everyday routines. Work. We were designed to work, but we're easily distracted. Words. Studies show that deceptive communication contributes to over 60% of all conflicts. Our words have power. Our words gets us in a pickle from time to time. Our words can be deceptive. It's the same thing that happened at the very beginning. Satan deceived Eve. It's the same thing playing out day after day, day after day, day after day. The other statistic was about character. Research consistently shows that honest, trustworthy people report higher life satisfaction and stronger relationships across every major life stage. When I was at Winter Weekend this year, I talked about a study from Harvard. It was one of the longest studies ever conducted. It went over 80 years. And they wanted to figure out what made people have happiness in their lives. And they thought they would build this study on 3 pillars: wisdom, wealth, and knowledge. And over the course of the next 80 years, what they found out is none of those really were the pillars. None of those projected if those people were going to be happy. The thing that constantly bubbled up was relationships. People that had quality relationships. Not people being present in their life, but people actually pouring into their lives, teaching them, walking with them, actually loving them, caring for them in all the moments of life. Those people were actually happiest. And those people actually lived longer. So you see, work, words, and character are all part of our design. It's all a way for us to look at what God's designed us for. So I want to start out with a story now. 2 brothers grew up in the same house, attended the same congregation, sat through the same Bible classes, and heard the same lessons from their father. When they were grown, their paths split sharply. The older brother took a job with a local contractor. He showed up early every day,
did honest work, kept his word, and treated customers fairly. He wasn't rich, but he built a reputation. When times got hard and the contractor had to let someone go, he kept the honest one. When a neighbor needed work done and asked around for someone trustworthy, people pointed to him. Slowly, steadily, his life bore fruit. The younger brother was sharper, or so he thought. He cut corners, talked a big game, borrowed money he didn't plan on repaying, and always seemed to be chasing something just out of his reach. He had seasons of apparent success, but none of them ever seemed to hold. Friends drifted away. His word meant nothing to anyone. By middle age, he was worn out, not by hard work, but by the exhaustion and weight of life that he built on sand. They had the same upbringing, the same starting line, and different daily choices. And this is just kind of a summary of what Proverbs chapter 10 is about. Solomon wasn't writing a fairy tale in this chapter. He was giving us a pattern that we can watch play out over and over again in all the lives that we see. Our own lives, those that are close to us, those we work with, those that we might just mere interact with. You see, it's the small choices every single day that makes the difference. It's not a theory, but it's actually in the details of the way we live our lives. Have you ever watched two people start in a similar circumstance and end up far apart? That's these brothers. Our words, our works, and our character carry weight. And we're going to look at the first one that kept popping up, and that was our work. Diligence versus laziness. Let's read verse 1 to start out. The Proverbs of Solomon: a wise son makes a father glad, but a foolish son is a grief to his mother. You see, our choices and our actions don't just put the burden on us. It actually puts the burden on those around us. It's not just personal. That ripple affects those that are closest to us, affects our families, affects our friends, affects our children. The family is going to be what always feels our choices and our consequences first. A wise son makes his father glad, but a foolish son is a grief to his mother. I want nothing more than to see my sons grow up, love the Lord, have tons of joy, and that would bring a lot of pride and make me happy. But at the same time, his actions are going to bear consequences. The way that I raise him is going to bear consequences. The way that I act daily, the way that I love his mother in our home, the way that I teach him how to be a man in our home is going to have rippling effects all throughout his life. And this is a powerful thing to kind of get it started, to really kick off the chapter starting in the home. The most important relationship we have in this world is our family unit at home, because if we don't get that right, we're probably not going to get it right when we walk out the door, are we? It's very difficult. And those that are closest to us are going to know how we actually love the Lord, or how we actually live for the Lord, or the things that are important to our lives, the things that matter to us. They're going to see the way that we actually act, the works that we do, the words that we use, the character that we have. They're going to see it just in the way that we do our daily lives, the small details each and every day. You notice he doesn't say the unlucky hand versus the fortunate hand. In verse 2, it says, ill-gotten gains do not profit, but righteous delivers from death. The Lord will not allow the righteous to hunger, but he will reject the craving of the wicked. The Lord will not allow the righteous to hunger, but he will reject the craving. Will is a powerful word. It's a constant word. If we're going to will something, we're going to do it. It's going to happen. It's not by chance, or it could possibly happen. It will happen. Laziness is never treated as a personality trait. It's treated as a path towards ruin. Poor is he who works with a negligent hand, but the hand of the diligent makes rich. He who gathers in the summer is a son who acts wisely, but he who sleeps in the harvest is a son who acts shamefully. There's seasons of life where we're going to be asleep at the wheel. We're going to miss the harvest that's out there. We're going to miss the work that we have to do. There's going to be moments where those closest to us are going to be thinking, what are we doing? It's right there for us, and we're asleep at the wheel. You see, the harvest doesn't wait. If you don't actually get out in the garden and take care of it, it's all going to shrivel up and die. It's not going to wait for you. It's not going to just be sitting there all this time waiting on you to go actually put forth your work. You see, we have moments, we have windows of opportunity to live the life that God has provided for us, to love those that are closest to us, to love those that come into our lives, whether it be for a moment or for extended periods of time. That harvest is small. And are we taking care of that? Are we watering that? Are we tilling that? Are we fertilizing those opportunities? Are we just letting them pass us by? Are we being lazy? You know, it's easy to look out at the garden that's vibrant, tons of fruit out there, and think, I want a garden. I'd love to grow my own food. I'd love to eat my own food. I'd love not to have to, go buy something from the store that who knows where it came from, who knows what chemicals was placed on it. But majority of us would struggle to keep a garden up. We wouldn't know when to plant it. We wouldn't know how to cultivate it. We wouldn't know which fertilizers to use. Life can be difficult, but the Lord will not allow the righteous to hunger. He's going to provide for us. He's going to give us the things that we need. He's going to provide for our lives. So in 2 Thessalonians 3:10 it says, "For even when we were with you, we used to give you this order. If anyone is not willing to work, then he is not to eat either." If he is not willing to work, then he should not eat either. He who gathers in summer is a son who acts wisely, but he who sleeps in harvest is a son who acts shamefully. There's going to come a time where the things that we do, we're going to have to pay for those. We're going to have to see the consequences. And it's going to cost us something. Is it going to cost us our garden? Is it going to cost us our harvest? Are we going to have the ill-gotten gains? Is the garden going to come and be very fruitful, and then we're going to see the beauty in it, and then we're just going to stop paying it attention? We're going to stop watering it. We're going to stop weeding it. We're not going to go pull our fruit. Our daily actions are going to be what tends that garden, what's going to tend our life, that's going to give us the strengths that we need. So in verse 5, it connects laziness to shame. The son that acts wisely gathers. And then it says the one who sleeps in the harvest acts shamefully. What do y'all think about that? Why do you think it's shameful if we're not acting? Why do we have that shame on us if we're not producing? If we're being lazy, why do we feel shame?
Because we're made to be productive.
Made to be productive.
And they didn't live like we do today, where you can go to the store like this and buy stuff. It's like even in the old law, there was if your son's eating all your food and drinking all the wine and not working, the thing was the parents bring that child, and if they're not going to repent, they would stone them because they're going to either, if a famine comes, they have nothing left, so they all die. So it's like, it's just shameful to not be working and doing these things because that's how their whole society lived. Is you have to do your share. You have to work. You have to garden. You have to, or whatever it might be. If you don't do it, we don't eat literally because in the winter nothing's going to grow. So it causes shame. Your son doesn't care about whether you are surviving or not at all.
That's actually kind of hits on what I had wrote down here is it's the recognition that our choices no longer affect just us. They affect those around us. So it puts that shame on us because we realize it's not about us anymore. It's about those around us also. It's about providing for that child or the child taken away from that family. You see, it's that moment where it's no longer I feel bad or guilty about something. I see the shame in it because I'm hurting Brother Elwood. I'm not providing for him. You know, I'm not doing what I need to be doing. I'm not living the way that the Lord designed me to live. I'm not picking the fruit. I'm not tilling the garden. I'm affecting what God has put in my life, what He's entrusted me with. And so therefore I feel shame. And I think that was a powerful contrast that he used there with laziness and shame. Because we can even think back, Jesus tells us to rest. But what's the difference between rest and laziness?
Go back to work when you get through the rest.
Yeah. Go back to work when you get done resting.
Rest is a necessity. Laziness
Well, so self-desire is laziness. I had wrote down laziness is avoidance. It's refusing to do the work that needs to be done. Laziness accumulates debt, where rest restores us. Rest is a practical way for us to look forward to the work that we're going to do. Laziness allows us to run away from it. So it's easy to think about that garden and think about laziness and rest. I have to rest to go work the garden. I have to rest to know that when my fruit comes in, I'm going to go pick it. I have to rest to know that I have the energy to get out in the sun and weed the weeds. I have to have rest to pour into that garden so that it can provide for me. But laziness is seeing the garden out there and saying, oh, I'll get around to it. I'll take care of it later. I get Hudson to go pull them weeds. You know, that's laziness, the avoidance of something that we truly need, that aspect that God's given us in our life that we just turn away from.
Being known as lazy
Probably one of the worst reputations you could have.
Yes. Yes. Being lazy is one of the worst reputations you could have, he said. You know, I think all of us in the back of our mind can think about that person or that time where laziness was a hindrance to me or a hindrance to my family, a hindrance to my work. There's all these areas that just laziness affects, and goes back to that shame I was talking about. Laziness creates shame because then whatever is going on is going to affect those around you, affect your coworkers, affect your family. So it's a very powerful word he chose to use there.
You know, in this context, verse 5, to me, it's talking about the shame on the family, right? So this is an agricultural society, and if it's time to harvest, everybody gets up and they go out to harvest, but your son sleeps in and doesn't come out, you know, then it brings shame on the family at this point. And, you know, that's, at that point, it's one of those things where it's not just affecting you, it's affecting the whole community. Or your family, it's affecting the whole community. Just like the way the church is, right?
Yep. I think that's a perfect picture to paint there, that, you know, thinking of the agricultural society, that we have the garden to go work right now. The Lord has given us that, and are we willingly going out and doing that? Are we being lazy? Are we hindrancing those around us by not doing that? So made me think about Colossians chapter 3, verse 23. Whatever you do, do your work heartily, as for the Lord rather than man. So if we took that same concept of, you know, work in the garden, but we look through it through that lens, are we doing this for the Lord, or are we doing this for ourselves? Do you think that would make a difference if we took that snapshot every morning and we looked out our windows, saw the garden, and instead of looking through it through our lens, we thought about the Father watching us? I think we'd take a different approach, wouldn't we?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that I think sometimes a lot of it, whenever I feel like I'm being lazy, it's because I've chosen to put my time and my efforts into something else, and you know, and maybe neglected something that matters more. So I feel like in this case, what you're talking about you know, doing it through the eyes of God, or working for God instead of man, making sure that the things we're doing is for Him, and we're not wasting all of our time, effort, energy on things that are for man or just for ourselves.
Yeah, I think to kind of go into what we're talking about is time being devoted to ourselves, or time being devoted to the Lord, is kind of what she was hitting on. And it's easy to use this analogy to see that, because if we're not taking care of the garden, then we're focusing on ourselves. And it's easy to have that happen. You know, Jesus tells us to deny ourselves if we want to follow Him. He plain blank tells us that, hey, you're going to struggle in this area. You're going to struggle with your own desires, your own wants. But there's a better way. And we know He's with us. We know He's watching us. We know He understands who we are. He created us the way He created us for a reason. So for us to sit back and constantly only look through this life through our own lens and not think about looking through it with Him watching over us, I think really is a powerful way for us to just step back and actually understand the gravity of what He's given us, the gravity of what He wants us to do with our lives, and not to be, you know, using the analogies here, not to be lazy, not to be shameful, but to be producing, to get in the garden, to work, to provide for our families, to provide for those around us, to provide for the church.
Well, you know, in 1 Timothy 5:8, it refers to those who not providing for their family is worse than an unbeliever. So that's pretty harsh.
Did you have something, Chip?
No, I just want to say, really, this part is about responsibility. It's about doing the thing we're supposed to do, or failing to do the thing we're supposed to do. When we do the thing we're supposed to do, we prepare, we do what we're supposed to do, that's, you know, we're going to be blessed because of that. When we fail to do the things that are our responsibility, it's going to bring shame on us and our whole circumstance and everybody around us. So Ecclesiastes, I think 3:11
I think that's a good point for us to kind of wrap up the laziness versus diligence. And we'll move into the next kind of thread that I felt like kept showing up, and that's righteous speech versus foolish words. I think this chapter is probably one of the most powerful chapters on this idea of righteous speech versus foolish words. Let's see here. Let's look at verse 11. The mouth of the righteous is a fountain of life, but the mouth of the wicked conceals violence. So I think this is another good one for us to kind of sit on for a moment, is the fountain of life. A fountain, it's providing, it's constantly giving. It's sustaining that water around it. It's constantly pouring out. Are we doing that in our lives? Are we being a fountain? Are we constantly pouring into those around us, constantly pouring into the church? Are we constantly living a life that represents Christ? Do we take the moments, the everyday moments, to live like we were designed to have the right attitude, to have the right mindset? A fountain, it's coming out, water's coming out. And it's the same thing for us. Words are coming out of our mouth. We're providing powerful knowledge, guidance, wisdom to those around us with the words that we use. And those words can really affect people's lives. The righteous person's words are not just harmless or polite. They're a source of life to the people around them. How many of us know somebody that it doesn't really matter the words they choose to speak to us, but it breathes life into the day? They walk up and they just have the right word to say at the right time. They text you at the right moment. They think about you and whatever's going on in your life when you even forget about it. Those people are fountains that are constantly pouring into your lives. Are we doing that for others? In verse 12, it says, hatred stirs up strife, but love covers all transgressions. I think this goes into that too. Are we loving those around us? Are we loving those that might hurt us? Are we loving every opportunity we have? Love covering transgressions, it doesn't mean that we act like it didn't happen. It's choosing not to weaponize those things in our lives. Things are going to happen. People are going to say something that hurts our feelings. People are going to do something. They're going to cut us off in traffic. They're not going to pull their weight. There's going to be these things that are going to happen constantly in our lives. You fill in whatever you need to fill in there, but it doesn't mean that we just act like it didn't happen. And we don't take those moments to broadcast them to everybody else either, do we? A fountain can be beautiful, life-giving, but we've all seen the coin fountains that are mildew and the water's barely trickling out and the money's got mold and slime and everything else on it. That fountain's still producing, ain't it? It's still got some life to it, but is that the one we want to be around? Is that the fountain we want to go to?
Let's hop down to verse 18. He who conceals hatred has lying lips, and he who spreads slander is a fool.
So we have the fountain that's kind of barely working, covered in mold, mildew, all that. Nobody wants to be around that, but also there's the fountain that's looks beautiful from a distance, that's pouring out water, but then you walk up and it smells awful. You don't want to be around that fountain either, do we? You see, the hidden resentments in our lives, they're going to bubble up. People are going to be able to see them. And the thing about it is those moments in our lives are actually going to be the ones that hurt those that are closest to us. When we conceal our anger, when we conceal our troubles, when we try to just hide them behind our lips, they're going to bubble out at some point. It's going to happen. And those that are closest to us are going to be the ones that are hurt the most in those moments. So concealing hatred and slander, they're put side by side. Concealed hatred is like building pressure. It's going to find its outlet. What's it going to be? Is it going to cut someone? Is it going to diminish someone's character? Is it going to hurt someone's abilities? Is it going to misrepresent somebody? Is it going to paint somebody in this bad light because you've held it in so long that every frustration you have, you're going to let out? And typically, like I said, it's going to be on those that are closest to you, those that are in your life the most, those that are just passing through, and all of a sudden, all that stuff you was trying to hide is going to bubble out. Verse 18, let's read it again. He who conceals hatred has lying lips, and he who spreads slander is a fool. You see, Solomon's not telling us that we need to be better about the words that we use. He wants us to address the issues at hand. He wants us to address our anger. He wants us to think about what's going on. And if we look back in verse 12, we get the answer of what we really need to do. In verse 12, it says, hatred stirs up strife, but love covers all transgressions. So if we have that love, if we're pouring that out for others, if we're constantly doing that, if we have some anger, if we have something going on, if we'll share it with love, it's going to be much better. It's going to be much better for us. It's going to be much better for those around us. It's going to provide that fountain of life that we was talking about. It's going to give us that opportunity to be that fountain for those around us. Let's look at verses 20 and 21 now. The tongue of the righteous is as choice silver. The heart of the wicked is worth little. The lips of the righteous feed many, but fools die for lack of understanding. Choice silver. What do you think about with choice silver? It'd be good, wouldn't it? I'd like to have some silver. I think of something that would have been very hard to get in this time. There wouldn't have been a lot of it laying around. You wouldn't have just be like money is for us today. It's something that's hard for us to just obtain. And we got to be smart with it. It has value. So then when we speak to others and when we share things with others, we need to make sure that
we're using that value. We're using that choice silver in everything that we do. Did you have something, Chip?
It's interesting if you look at all these verses in this proverb. How much of it's about what we say. Like this verse is talking about here, but somebody's looking at our tongue, the words of the fool, the words of the wise, our tongue, our mouth, it's all talking. There's so much of it is talking about that. We cannot discount, I think, that sometimes in terms of how powerful it is, in terms of displaying our attitude. But probably second to the talking about word of mouth is attitude. So many of the verses apply to what our attitude is about things, how our attitude is about things. So it's really powerful what we say and how we say it every day, all day long. Like Matthew, I think chapter 15, where it says that what comes out of our mouth proceeds from our heart. So all that kind of ties together with this. But it's just pretty interesting if you just go back and read through this whole proverb, this whole chapter. That how much of it talks about mouth, word, tongue, all that kind of stuff. That's pretty neat.
Yes. I actually had that wrote down. You had verses 11, 12, 14, 18, 19, 20, 21, 31, 32. They're all referring to what Chip's talking about. Over and over again, we constantly hear about the words that we use and how powerful it can be. John Nix told me about a book a few years ago I read, and it was called Be Quiet, Be Heard. And there was a line in that book that I still kind of remember today. I don't quote it word for word, but in that book it says that most people listen to reply instead of listening to what somebody's saying. They're listening to see how they can respond to whatever you're saying instead of listening. Choice silver, if we think about the value of that, if we take the time to hear what somebody's saying to us and we pause long enough to actually listen to somebody, what would that do? What if we was actually thinking about what the person was saying before we ever said anything? Yes, sir.
We have ears for a reason, but if you're in a workplace, you can narrow down people's personalities if you just listen to how they react to things and what turns them on, what gets them mad, what spouts their interest, just by listening. And that will help you communicate with that person a lot easier down the line, knowing, how sensitive they are to their feelings, what gets them upset, what gets them mad. But knowing that, their personality will help you communicate with these people.
Well, I think about what you're saying there. It goes back to the one of the statistics I started out with, relationships. Relationships are the number one thing that we need for happiness. And the example you're using at work and understanding somebody's personality, if we truly have a relationship with somebody and we understand them, then we can love them. We can be that fountain. We can help them in their garden. All those things work backwards, all the way back to what God created us for. He created us for a relationship with Him. And then He gave us the world and the people in it to have relationships with so that we can understand who He is and His characteristics so that therefore we can understand what love is. And love is the way He loved us. Yes, sir.
You kind of hit on it. Something that sticks out to me is like back in 13, we covered right before this, in the lips of him that hath understanding, wisdom is found. And then in the verse we just read, I think 23 is one I was looking at, but a man of understanding hath wisdom. So we've talked about knowledge earlier in the Proverbs, right? And then we talked about wisdom. Well, this tells us that understanding is a key point also, right? I mean, you have the knowledge, and then you have understanding that brings wisdom. So maybe, and then with the interactions of everybody, sometimes, you have to have help to understand something, right? And that's where again, back to the church comes together, that we're here to help others understand to help them garner more wisdom. But we have to have the knowledge, understanding, and wisdom. And throughout this proverb, you see the word understanding and wisdom. Sometimes it's interchanged, but sometimes, like in 13, it mentions both. So I thought that was rather unique.
Yes. So the last section I had, which we're running out of time, was righteousness versus wickedness. And he hits on this pretty right out the gate in verse 2 and 3, which we covered a little bit earlier. But then in verses 6 and 7, it says, blessings are on the head of the righteous, but the mouth of the wicked conceals violence. The memory of the righteous is blessed, but the name of the wicked will rot. And it goes back to, I think Brother Elwood said something earlier about that reputation. That reputation we have, are we going to be remembered, or are we going to rot? You know, what kind of life did we live? Did we live that righteous life that people are going to remember, that they're going to talk about the way that we love those in our lives, the way that we love the Lord, the way that we love the church, the way that we poured out? Or are they just going to kind of forget about us like the garden and let it rot away? Yes, ma'am.
Told me a few years ago that everybody in your life is either a fountain or a drain, and that has kind of stuck with me because I feel like it is pretty true. You think about the people in your life, and you could pretty easily, say whether or not you feel like they're a fountain in your life or a drain whenever you're around them and with them, and just I don't know, the whole like the fountain thing. Just are you an encouragement to people around you? Are you kind and loving and cheerful, or are you constantly being negative and just pointing out the faults and the bad things and the anyways, it just was said to me a while back and it has stuck with me, and I've thought about it several times since, and it just reminded me of the things that you're saying.
Yes, I think that sign is up at Movie Star. I think about it every time I see it. And when I was doing this lesson, I thought about that too. And kind of what I was just hitting at is, what kind of memory do we want to leave? What kind of memory do we want to leave for people? What kind of memory do we want to leave for our families? What kind of memory are we going to have? We done the legacy, what was that, last year before? Well, we spent the whole year talking about legacy. And this, kind of lesson tonight, that's kind of what it's building up to. What kind of legacy are you going to have? Are you going to have lived and loved the Lord and shared that with those around you and poured out that wisdom, poured out that love that covers all transgressions? Are you going to constantly be putting out into your garden, working, showing others how to live? Are you going to be raising your kids? Are you going to be loving your spouse? Are you going to be spending time with those that are in need? All these areas that we have, all these things, but it all kind of boils back to that relationship that God created us for. And all these areas that we have in life are for us to be able to understand that the greatest thing that we can have is Him. And He gives us all these beautiful analogies and people in our lives to allow us to understand and gain that wisdom, understand that knowledge, to put it in action, to show it, to really let it just grow inside of us so that we can pour it out. And that's where I'm going to close tonight, is that Solomon isn't giving us 3 separate to-do lists. You see, he's describing one integrated life, a life shaped by the fear of the Lord, by the work that we do, by the words that we say and use, and the character that we have. It's not 3 different departments in our lives. It's 3 different windows into our soul. And what does our soul represent? Our soul represents God's love for us. It's how He set us apart from everything else. He gave us a soul. And that's kind of what I wanted to leave you with tonight, is there's so much that we can do in our lives. There's so much that we can say. There's so much that we can allow others to see with the lives that we live. But if we don't have that relationship with our Lord, if we don't have that relationship with God, all that other stuff's going to crumble. It's going to fall apart. It's not going to be worth anything. If you would, bow with me and we'll close with prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you. Thank you for tonight, and thank you for the words that we had and the comments that were made, Lord. As we reflect on your word, just allow it to sink in. Allow us to understand that your love is beyond our comprehension, that you have given us everything that we need for life, that you've given us so much wisdom, and you've given us so many different people in our lives to help us unpack that. You've given us your word. You've written it down for us to study. And Lord, just allow us to dig in and understand that these three areas we talked about tonight, that the work that we do, the way that we live, the words that we use, the love that we share with others, the attitude that we have, the character that we build, Lord, it's all a representation of you. And allow that to be something that we sit on and reflect on and understand that we should always be looking as if you're sitting right there with us, if you're riding with us, if you're talking to us, Lord. You designed it this way for a reason, and you gave us prayer to reach out and talk to you. You gave us the people in our lives and the things that we do in our lives to reflect you, to help us to understand the love that you have for us. And we're just so grateful for that. And we're so thankful for the people that are here tonight and those that couldn't make it tonight. Lord, we just ask that you watch over us and keep us safe as we go about our week. And Lord, just allow us to come back and hear some more of your word. Lord, just allow it to make an impact in our lives and those that we interact with. We ask all this in your Son's name. Amen.